Hello, 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 my friends. How are you all doing today? Today we are in for a hell of a ride. Caroline comes on again, and boy, oh boy, do we just kind of jump right into it and not care what we say. Um, for context, because I like the last interview I did, I just pretty much had to hit the record button because I was like, I'm never gonna hit it, kind of thing. And we just start talking about COVID and hurricanes and the government and how they're manipulating people, and we get a little into political unrest and stuff like that. And yeah, it is fun. Hang in there. We do get around to her stories, and boy, oh boy, are her stories a hell of a ride too. Really get you thinking. So here we go. Let's buckle up, get some popcorn, get your drinks, and let's rock and roll.
Welcome to the Josh Bolton Show, where we dive into interesting and inspiring conversations. And now, your host, Josh Bolton.
Programs or any other type of government program or anything like that. The reason why they're never successful is because if we're ever successful with something, if we solve a problem, if we go, oh, this is how you stop this from happening, or this is how you make this happen, then the money dries up.
Oh yeah. Where I live in my part of California, my city, the police alone, they have 3 armored trucks, an armored RV. They have enough armory to make the military blush. Like they have full-on Gatling guns. We're a small town. Why do you have a Gatling gun and an armored RV?
I don't think we're supposed to ask those big questions, Josh.
I've actually said it to the chief herself. I was like, why do we have that armored RV? Kind of like that makes no sense.
I think most likely, and we'll probably both disappear and end up in Siberia after me saying this and you asking the question, but I think that communities have those in case of what they would call a national emergency or martial law being imposed. That way, they've already stationed that type of equipment around the country.
Oh yeah, I know that was pretty much what she said. She's like, we're given a budget, we were under budget, so we had to spend everything to make sure we were overspending, so they give us more money next year.
Oh well, yeah, that makes sense too. But I also think that they do that kind of thing to make sure that every place that they could possibly need rapid deployment of military type behavior that they can. And it's
yeah,
like the interstate highway system isn't so we can all go to Disneyland easier. That's not what that's for. It's completely set up so that the military can mobilize quickly if they have to.
Oh yeah.
And that's just a fact. That's not a conspiracy or anything. That's just the way it is. That's why they were built.
Yeah, like if you can take, I think it's the 5 from San Diego all the way to Washington. So you literally just hop on the 5 and you can go north. If you got 2 guys cranking Red Bulls, you can do it in 24 hours kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, just look at the way the entire system is laid out. It's just a straight shot from one part of the country to the next.
Well, it's the same for me. When I went earlier in the year, I went out to Texas for a railroad job. I literally just hopped on. See the 10? Yeah, the 10, because I went past the Grand Canyon and then came in. It was literally just straight and then a sharp turn right into Texas. I was just one of those. I was like,
no, 10 goes south. 10 goes along through Tucson. 17 is that the one that goes
something then?
Okay. I-40.
That could be it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I-40 even goes across Missouri.
Yeah. Yeah, I went from California, Nevada, a little bit of New Mexico, tapped Missouri for a second, then I came back to Texas.
Yep. That would probably be it.
Cool.
But yeah, it's a lot of things that people just think are, for making their life easier. That's not really what they were designed for.
No, no, they're just waiting for something.
Yeah.
Well, they've
And
been
that's
waiting
scary.
since like the six. Yeah, they've been waiting since the '80s, but they know something's coming, and that's why they're arming their teeth.
Well, and you look at things like how many millions of bullets FEMA bought.
Hmm.
Why does the why does FEMA need millions of boxes of bullets?
FEMA, what's that one again?
The Federal Emergency Management Agency. Yeah, like the
Oh,
people who show up if a hurricane happens or something like that.
well,
Why do they
also,
need all those bullets?
well, here's the crazy thing. Here in California, essentially, to legally buy bullets, um, they have to do a background check on you, and you're given limits. So
Oh, I believe.
you can only buy up to two boxes and within a 1 month period. So they're not taking our guns away, but they're taking the thing that goes boom away.
Yeah, yeah, you can't do much but whack an intruder over the head with your gun if you don't have a bullet.
Pretty much. But here's the weird part though, with California, salt shots and buckshot though is not limited. That's
Really,
weird. Yeah, that's the weird part.
that is. I mean, if you're up close to somebody, you can inflict some real serious harm with the
Even with a
buckshot.
salt shot. Yeah, I think oh
Yeah.
no, yeah, I think buck they do have a limit, but it's not crazy like two. But birdshot, there's
Uh-huh.
like no limit. Even with a birdshot, you can really mess up a human.
You could, especially if you're a good shot and know where to aim.
Hmm.
Go for one of those weak points in the body. Well, just somebody's face. Yeah. Their throat, their face. Exactly.
Well, and then
Oh,
and
that's
that's
not
the right, but it's just like, wait, why is birdshot like all you can eat buffet kind of thing? Is like unless they think like no one's actually going to be smart enough to use it that way.
well, and it's also because your bird shot, you could have a whole stockpile of bird shot, but if it's the government that has control of the actual bullets that are going to inflict danger from a distance, you're still screwed. You're out of
Oh
luck.
yeah. Oh my gosh, you're screwed. Yeah. I mean, I've interviewed many like Navy SEALs, military, um, one guy that's was active, special ops, and he even told me he's like, oh yeah, he's like, if you think you're not being watched, you are so wrong. He's like, at any
We're being
moment,
watched.
he's like, he's like, this is watching you, that's watching you, and he's like, those helicopters, like they're always watching you, and I'm like, I thought it was news. He's like, yeah, about that. It's not the news.
Yeah. Yeah. People talk about invasion of privacy and everything. If they think that we have privacy, they're deluding themselves because we don't. Everything can track you these days. Your car can. I mean, people who have things like OnStar, you'll hear on the news where a burglar stole a car and OnStar was able to turn off the car and they slowed down and were at a complete stop on the interstate and the police just surround them. Well, guess what? They can do that if they decide you're public enemy number one, too, even if you're not doing anything wrong.
Oh yeah. Um, no, this is the funny thing I tell people. I said Elon Musk is smart. He sells the people what they want. But I said, but he's not actually selling what the people want. It's what the government wants. Because
Yeah.
I said, if everyone goes all electric and they have some AI bot that controls them, everything about the car, I'm like, I could be trying to head out to Death Valley and suddenly my car decides to turn around and then bring me back to jail.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about that?
And exactly. Yeah. I don't know. I think people have a misguided sense that they have more rights than what they really do.
I mean, I bought for the railroad job, I bought a Toyota Tacoma, but it was like the last one without like the actual auto assist driving,
Uh-huh.
which is actually one. My aunt in Texas had the Kia whatever with the auto assist. Okay, it's kind of cool. You press a button and it keeps you in a lane, kind of thing. Like, so she literally was talked to us for like 70 miles, never touched the steering wheel. That was cool, but it's terrifying at the same time because it could drive itself.
Yeah. And go where it wanted to. And I know, okay, so this was a crazy thing that happened to me. Okay, so in late March, my old car got hit for the third time by a deer, and it was a fatal blow the last time.
I couldn't handle
So
it.
yeah, I mean, the highway patrolman picked up one of its headlights down the highway. It was in
Oh,
bad shape. Yeah,
are
no,
you okay
Sparky
from
is,
it?
I'm okay, but Sparky is no more.
Okay.
And so I had to get a Nissan. Well, I didn't have to get a Nissan, but I had to get a new car, and I got a Nissan, and it doesn't have OnStar. So, and I'd been used to using OnStar with my Chevy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so then I thought, okay, I'll switch to using Google Maps on my phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever the little map app is that's on my phone, just automatically my iPhone. And I remember I had gone to see Keith, and that was it. Like, that was the first time I'd ever plugged directions, like put an address in. And I got in my car, and my phone gave me an alert telling me on the return trip when I left seeing him how long it would take me to return home. And I thought, well, wait a minute, I never told you where my home is. And then the next day was a Monday, and I was going to go into town, and it told me, this was during summer break, it told me how far away work was. It already knew where I worked,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd never used it for that.
Yeah. No, and I have an iPhone too, and I had to like go into the settings and turn all that off. Like I know it's still tracking me, but it's not going to tell me that anymore because before I got this my new job of being like a pool guy, I was going down
Mhm.
literally like a mile down the street to my janitor job at night. It would tell me at exactly 11:21. Don't know why 11:21 to pick that. Your drive to work should be clear. It should only take you 5 minutes. I would always get frustrated with that. It was my day off. I'm like, I'm not going to work, dang it.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it just knows too much about us. It just does. And there's not much we can do about it at this point, because even if we don't have any kind of device that would track us, every business has surveillance cameras now.
mhm.
I mean,
I
they
see it
can
at
tell.
the houses I when I do pools. Everyone has the ring or some sort of like Chinese knockoff surveillance system, which there's a whole problem with that.
Yep.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's cameras everywhere.
And the Chinese situation's just like really a
Well,
little unnerving.
they're about to collapse their economy though.
Are they?
They're about to have their own version of Lehman Brothers here.
Really?
Hmm.
What's going on?
So essentially, so for that one, it started back in like 2017. They essentially were just printing bonds and just giving these developers money so they could make China stronger, more money. Well, suddenly the bonds came due and they didn't have the money. So they
Yeah, that
kind
would be
of
a
like
problem.
they kind of like did like a hey, just give us like a month or two to get the money kind of thing because it's all in our buildings. So they avoided default during COVID, but now it's coming due again. And essentially, the It's the Lehman Brother. All of these people who normally shouldn't have a house have houses and cars and stuff. It's all going to suddenly come due.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
And this is where like America's heavily invested in China and
Uh-huh.
China's heavily invested in us. So if one goes down, the other goes down. And if we
Yeah.
go down, like Europe goes down, if Europe goes down, Saudi Arabia area goes down. So it's like, I'm just sitting here watching. I'm like, when's it going to go?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, talk about too big to fail.
Oh, it can fail.
It can fail.
Like when I was in doing martial arts with one of my buddies, well, new martial arts studio, um, he's talking about how we're losing rights as American, this and that, and how America is screwing over people. And I said, "Pfft." He's like, oh no, he's like, take China can take us over any day now if they really want to. I'm like, China's got their own big problems. I said, plus, why do they need to
Yeah.
attack us? They already got in. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, TikTok. Like, it is screwing all the kids' memories and what is real and what's not, the divisiveness of trans people to this community, to that community. They already have us fighting amongst ourselves. Why do they need to step in?
And add to that AI,
Mm-hmm.
where pretty soon, if it's not already happened, how are we going to know if that was an actual news report or was it computer generated?
The AI right now, because I've been studying coding, I'm not like some prolific AI coder, but I just want to know the
Uh-huh.
basics. Um, if you know what you're looking for, there's distinct tells that's AI generated, like glitches where there shouldn't be glitches and stutters where there shouldn't be stutters. But it's super subtle. Unless you're really looking for that, you can't tell the difference.
And do you think that 95% of the American public would know what to look for?
No, not one bit.
No. I mean, these are the same people who believe politicians' promises on both sides. You know, they they already suspend disbelief.
Yeah. Well, it's wild. I mean, just the political divisiveness we're in. Um, I was actually a big one. I was talking with the martial arts crew when I was helping them clean their mats. I told them, I said, "There's World War III is the greatest war to ever happen, but it's the greatest war that we have never seen as a species before." So World War One was the trenches and mustard gas. World War Two was the Holocaust and the nukes. What's something we haven't seen yet before? And they all look, and I said, how about dividing us as a species, AI and automation, and like cyber warfare?
Yeah.
And I said, we as a species have never seen that before. And I said, we're already seeing the starts of it. And they said, this could be a 1,000-year war. This could be one that just keeps going and pretty much never ends.
And there's not going to be too much concern about the emotional or physical well-being of the mere humans.
No.
Well, I know it's so divisive right now that I actually made a comment on somebody's post on social media that said, well, if either or both Biden or Trump broke the law, then they need to be held accountable. Either one of them.
Right.
And, and that's all I said was if either or both of them broke the law, hold them accountable, and the shitstorm that hit was just amazing. This guy came yesterday, this guy came out of the woodwork on that post and called me a brainwashed communist, said that these
He's
were my indictments. And I'm like, wait a minute, I wasn't supporting Biden. He was, I wasn't saying Biden didn't do anything wrong. I don't know if he did. I said, let's just see how the
it's
court
it's the
proceedings go.
it's the Hunter
And
Biden situation is what he's referencing.
Oh, no, I know, but I mean, I understand what both sides are talking about, but that's why I said if either Biden or Trump did something wrong, let them have their day in court and we'll see what the evidence was, right?
Right.
And I was told that I was unfit to be an American because I said if somebody broke the law, they should be held accountable. It's just
That's
crazy
wild.
that they're so divided and so much this is my team versus your team, and both sides think the other team is the devil, that they can't even say, well, you know what, yeah, if my guy did break the law, then he should be punished. You
Hmm.
never saw anything like that happen during the Nixon administration, where when it came out that yeah, he had been doing some really shady stuff, there weren't Republicans protesting saying that it was a witch hunt.
It's literally, I do futures contract trading, and my mentor has a Zoom call every Thursday at like 4 p.m. Alabama time, so 2 my time. I don't go anymore because the one hedge fund broker guy, all he talks about is Trump. He's like, Trump, the 2000 mules, the libtards ruined America. And I'm like, okay, how does that relate to corn growing?
It
I
doesn't.
like that doesn't relate to corn growing. Like, yeah, if global warming affects corn, then yeah, we might want to talk about that. But then he's all like, and then they took the election away, Trump, and he's like the kind of guy I imagine him looking at a poster of Trump on the wall and just at 70, he's not rock hard, but he's just like Trump, Trump, Trump
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah. No, it's, I don't understand. Like, my degree is in political science, but honestly, I don't like any politician enough to be that excited about them.
Me neither.
They're
Like,
humans. They're just people. They are just people.
seriously. That's the like for me, like especially well, because we're getting into election next year. Um,
Yeah.
everyone's like, "Who are you voting for? Are you voting?" Oh, by the way, fun fact before we get back to that, I guess Gavin Newsom's gonna run.
Is he really?
I guess he's gonna run. I guess he did a debate against Santos last night. I want to look that up. I'm like, how did that go?
Oh my. Yeah. I'd heard his name tossed around, but I didn't know he was actually running.
He hasn't officially thrown his hat in. I think he wanted to see how it went with the debate before he fully threw his hat in, kind of thing. But he's so high and mighty. I mean, he's got anti Pelosi that got him in. Like, I think it's one of those. He's good. He
Yeah.
he want Miss anti Pelosi will figure it out, kind of thing. But back to the other one. Everyone's like, oh, who are you gonna vote for? Like blue or red? I'm like, whoever the person's that's not batshit crazy. So that's usually the yellow party. They're actually moderate.
Yeah. Oh, it's just, I don't understand people that used to seem like normal human beings who now, if someone's a Republican, they hate them. If somebody's a Democrat, they hate them. And it's as though nothing else in life matters. And all of us, I don't care which party you belong to, or if you don't belong to a party at all, most of us have the vast majority of character traits the same. Everybody wants their family safe, well fed, secure. Um, they want to be able to celebrate birthdays with their loved ones. They want to be able to take their loved one to the doctor if they need some kind of medical care. We
Mhm.
have so many similarities beyond what boxes checked on a voter ID card, and
Or
people
his sexual
just ignore
identity
it.
now too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's funny, but it's not. I was first starting when I was learning how to do pools because my uncle had a knee surgery. That's how I got into the gig because I got fired from the railroad stuff. Um, this one lady, as I'm working, pool stuff is like an introvert stream. No one really bugs you. No one really talks to you other than like the manager. Like, hey, I noticed a dead cat. Can you get that out of the pool? It's like, yeah, yeah. Then dump in the
Yeah.
chlorine, clean all that up. Other than that, no one bugs me. This lady comes out of nowhere. Like, I was working and then I had my AirPods in and I turn and go, oh shit. She's all like, and she's like, Sonny, I want you to know that I sexually identify as a unicorn. I'm like, and I'm literally, I heard this before at Stater Brothers, and I was like, what? Wait, what? Can you explain to me what that means? What identity? Like, are you trans? Are you this? Are you that? Like, say, I just identify as a unicorn. I'm like, because you're always horny? Like, I'm really confused. She lost her shit. Lost it. You ignorant bigot, this and that. You homophobic, whatever. And I was like, and then she said, you sir, and I said, and I immediately just used her own game. Like, you assumed my gender? How dare you? And she's all like, oh no, she's like cowering in the corner.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing that I care about somebody identifying as is I want my students to all identify as someone who's going to work hard and pass my class. That's that's
You
all
could
I
be a
worry
rainbow, you could be a helicopter, a leprechaun. I don't care.
exactly.
Just pass this.
Make sure you learn what you're supposed to be learning. I don't care otherwise.
Seriously. But that was the wildest one. I was like, I laughed because it was like I was telling my girlfriend, I was like, this is almost like those internet trolling things, but in real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, people are so blurring Twitter to reality,
Next step trolling.
right? Or just
Yeah.
completely ignorant.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
I
it was
don't know. I don't know where we're going. But here's a solution
okay.
that could take care of all of our problems. If what's going on in those videotapes that the hearing was based on about UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon, we might be worried about problems we will never exist to know about. We might not have to worry about AI taking over. If there's an alien invasion, they might
If
just
it well, here's the
care of
thing. What
that.
if it's already happened?
Yeah, yeah,
What if it's well, I would say
exactly.
they're way smarter than us. They have better technology than us. We're just like this. We're still cavemen running around with sticks. These people,
We are.
these species could still be so sophisticated that they could embody us like a shapeshifter.
I
Then
just
how do
wrote a
we?
story actually that the gist of it is that AI has taken over society and has turned humans into slaves. And the
Okay.
aliens land, and everybody's like, oh shit, great. Now aliens have landed. How much worse is this going to get? Well, then it turns out that the aliens are the only ones who are far enough advanced with intelligence that they can outsmart the AI. So they come in, they fight our battle, and then they're like, we're going to stay here till you stabilize your government and your society, and then we're going to leave again. Thank you very much. We knew this day would come.
Well, here's the wild thing. I've been getting a lot of this on YouTube and TikTok. Actually, I deleted TikTok, but my attention span got so short with that. But that's a big one. People are saying, what if we as a species, like how the pyramids were perfectly lined up with everything, how these labyrinths in Egypt are now being found, but we as the species could never have done that on our own. What if we had like star people coming down with their
Yeah.
technology and helping us, kind of thing? And it could be like your story. They're coming back to like, we just did this. Like,
Like, ah,
come
couldn't
on,
leave
people.
you alone for more than a few thousand years.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So I think if anything, if there is an alien invasion, I don't think it's like War of the World situation. I think it's going to be more like they're trying to be like, help us without us knowing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think there's so much stuff going on. And then, I'll listen to paranormal podcasts just because it's kind of fun. And
Hmm.
my stories don't necessarily come from any of those, but it's just kind of fun to hear the
Right.
ideas that are out there, And I think, what, if even 5% of what these talk about is real, then there's a whole lot going on our own planet that we don't even understand or aren't aware of. And
Yeah.
that's,
I
just going beyond aliens or anything like that. There could be a whole lot of stuff going on this planet that we're just oblivious to.
Or you could get into the metaphysical where we are only on this frequency, but there's still all that other stuff going around, but we in this flesh body can't see that.
Right. Interdimensionalism, and kind of like looking at a sheet of paper from the side view, we only see this little thin slice of
Hmm.
it. But if you turned it over, there'd be so much more that we should know about.
Hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
that's well, because it's like the concept like time actually is only a man-made thing. Like the idea that we've been sitting here for 31 minutes is actually not a thing. We
Right.
decided it was though.
Yeah. I mean, it's completely a human construct to determine how long a second is or 1,000 years.
Hmm.
That's just, I mean, what if each day is what we consider 5 days, but we're just built to sleep 5 times a day? How would, I mean,
You would?
it exactly. But I know somebody in my family was making the argument, oh, she was mad as a hornet because they were, because the time change. And she said that this is what's wrong with this country. And this is why
I think
God has abandoned us, because um, we shouldn't be messing with time, because God established what time is. And I'm like, no, actually, I
no.
told her this. I said, no, actually, time is a man made construct.
Hmm.
God
Well, I
didn't,
mean, so you go.
well, just nowhere in the Bible does it say, and God said a second's going to be this long, or a minute's going to be made up of 60 seconds. People get too wrapped up in things that really were just something that it was easier for somebody to break it down into that time for us to understand.
Well, it's so what I was going to get to is like the 7 days, and on the seventh day he rested, kind of thing. But the concept of time was never introduced until like the idea of time was never introduced, but it's used as if it's already been introduced. So was that humans or was that actually God?
Yeah. Well,
I had
and
that. Sorry, you go.
oh no, I was just going to say that I thought for quite a while that one of the biggest problems that we have, and the division that happens religiously, even between different Christian denominations,
Hmm.
is that too many people, and it spills over to politics too with
Yes.
this, but too many people try to create God in their image instead of God made man in his image. We try to create God to be what we want God to be, and
Hmm.
to be the one that justifies our own narrow perspective of what's okay and what's not okay. And I'm not saying, it should be a free for all and complete anarchy. I'm just, you know what I'm saying? That,
Yeah. Well,
when you look at genders and stuff like that, you know, it's not my place to say whether somebody's going to hell because they're different than I am. But a lot of people love to make that argument.
oh yeah. Well, it's one of those. I actually had a chat with one of the clients. and then but also my uncle when he was training me, and I told him, I said, where does it specifically say in the Bible that? And he couldn't render whatever I was. It was like essentially like if you judge, it's okay. Because I told him, I said, I've always interpret the text as if you judge someone, whether you're right or wrong, you have done a sin, an unforgivable sin. So to say, oh, that
Yeah.
person's going to hell, from what I've read, and I showed him the text and everything, I said, that's what I got. It's like you're not supposed to judge. You're just helping, and then like karma kicks in. Eventually, it evens itself out. Where does it say that? Like and that's where he got what man. My uncle's a pretty chill dude. His blood was boiling. His face was turning red. I was like, he had a knee surgery, and he's sitting in my car, and I'm like, oh my god, he's gonna randomly come over and hit me, kind of thing. But but yeah, that's where it was just one of like I told him like, but where does it say that? Like I'm genuinely curious because it's not adding up for me. And that's where he essentially later on told me, he's like, you're actually right on when it comes to that text. And I'm like, wait, what? Kind of thing. I was like,
Could you say that one more time?
Can you say that when I turn my phone on?
Yeah.
But it was just one of those. He's like, yeah. He's like, I guess at his church they talked about the same thing with that exact quote, and that's where he said, "It is not your place to judge whether someone's going to here or there," kind of thing. But then I started telling him, I said, well, since I got one win, I'm going to take, you give me an inch, I'm going a mile. What about this, this, and this? He's like, no. But that was a big one. He told me, he's like, how did you learn that? I'm like, dude, I listened to this author named Joseph Murphy. He talks about metaphysical and all that. But he talks about how the Bible is more of a psychological drama. So if you look at like Jesus as, yes, he's God, but if God is your subconscious, because we don't fully understand the subconscious and what it can and can't do. If you look at it as your subconscious is God and can literally manifest something, well, we say that's God. What if that's just all us humans are intrinsically God?
In his image.
In
right?
his image. So, and that's where me and him differed. But I said, but a lot of what he says is the Bible is more of a psychological drama. It's not supposed to be taken literal. He's like, because I'm like, I told him like, there's.
Go ahead.
It's okay.
Well, I was just going to say my brother-in-law is one that says that there's no way that aliens actually exist because it's not mentioned in the Bible. And so
what
that
if aliens helped us write the Bible?
Scriptural. Well, and so my response to that is that the Bible deals with earth, what goes on with us people here on earth. When we go to the doctor, we don't want the doctor telling us all the things he's doing to heal his other patients. We just want to know what he's going to do for us.
Right.
And the Bible is our path to heal and be spiritually reconstructed from being broken. And God didn't intend to have to tell everything to us, just what we need to know.
Right. It was just enough so you could get an idea where to go.
Yeah.
But like I tell people, I'm like, if you're going to the mountain, the top of a mountain, there could be up to 1 million ways to the top. Now, some of them are fruitless and some of them are really dangerous and will get you killed, but there are generally good spots to go that are safe. That doesn't mean you're bending to whatever will or manipulating people. It's just generally this path is proven and safe kind of thing. You should probably take it. And I said, I'm like, that's kind of the Bible. It's like, this is a really good, safe path. Doesn't mean it's right. Because we have Buddhism, Confucianism, Hinduism, whatever else isms kind of thing. It's like, but it all leads to the same thing. Like if you really look at Buddhism, all it is life is suffering. You choose to be where you're at, do good more than evil, help your neighbor, and think higher of yourself. Wow, that's Christianity, kind of in a nutshell. Oh wait, that's also kind of Confucianism and Hinduism and Muslim,
Islam.
Islam. Yes, um, it's the same. The root concepts are the same, and that's where I tell people, I'm like, all religion is just more of like a subtle way of saying this is a good path. Generally, you should probably take this. Now, yes,
Well,
obviously
and
there's a little manipulation in there, but
if you look at even when Jesus was on the cross and he was being crucified with two criminals, the one repented and said, I believe you. You're the Son of God.
mhm,
And he said that that man would be with him in paradise. But
mhm,
the other one who stuck to not believing and going a better way wasn't. To say that there's not more than one way to the top of the mountain means that you had to only live your life the way one type of person lives. Where that right there shows that Jesus is like, no, you lived a life of crime, and yet you're still able to get there. You know, you didn't have to take the long route as long as you want to get to the same place. And
right.
so people think that unless someone lives their life exactly the way that person thinks that everyone else should be living their lives, that they're not going to make it into heaven. And that just seems extremely self-centered, which is also supposed to be something that Christians aren't.
That's my biggest argument with my sister. Actually, she's going to theology school and getting her seminaries and all that. And actually, the biggest one I had with her, and I said, is to tie it to something else and back to her, the self centeredness. But I told her, I said, I think if Jesus was real, I said, what would he have done? She's like, oh, what he said they say in the Bible. I'm like, no, because the Bible wasn't actually built until a council of people came together with the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they literally just raised their hand if they like that verse or not. So there's a lot of human manipulation in there, saying like, oh, we should, because I said there is a quote that was removed, but if you find there is a Dead Sea Scroll to this saying reincarnation is a thing. Where's that in the Bible? Oh wait, because if they have one life, then they will actually listen to their overlords and their slave drivers. You have one life. If I kill you, that's it. There's no coming back. But there was a reference to reincarnation. Just so happens it's not in there anymore, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what if also Jesus had a wife and kids? Oh wait, that makes him seem normal and holier than thou. He's not a celibate virgin that dies on a cross. There's references in the Dead Sea Scrolls to that. I told her, I'm like, there's a lot of more manipulation than you realize in the Bible.
Well,
I'm
and
like,
then you look at King James,
oh yeah,
the
he altered it so he can live his lifestyle and
yeah,
not get in trouble.
exactly.
And then everything's based off his too.
Yeah.
And that's where she actually was doing the Dead Sea Scrolls, and essentially she made a argument with her professor. Essentially, back to the self-centeredness. She's like, her make or break paper was prove God's not real. She couldn't. So she came to me. So I told her everything that I've from my studies, the contradictions and this and that. But then, so she wrote it, but the self centeredness for her was like, but I don't believe this. So I can't sign off on this. And I'm like, you don't have to believe it. That's the whole point of this. Can you present the evidence that before you? But I
Yeah.
believe my calling is to prove that God is real. I'm like, is that like a voice in your head, or is that you're told by your teacher to do this? You did it. But then that's where she's like, well, the people at my whatever will understand. Will they? You're a shepherd. They're the sheep. The shepherd's expecting the sheep to lead the shepherd, but the shepherd has to lead the sheep. Do you see the problem here? Kind of thing. And that's where that me and her don't really talk about religion, but that's where I told her, I'm like, how you present Christianity is very selfish. God is for me and only me, kind of thing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, kind of thing.
Yeah, because it is not our place to decide if anybody else is going to heaven. That's not our call.
It's not.
Yeah.
And so that
People,
was, sorry, you go.
just people like to twist whether it's religion, politics, um, money.
It's like the
They
three
put
taboos.
value. Yeah, they put value, even music. There are people who try to tell you what music, remember, rock and roll was going to send everybody to hell. They, they're notes, they're instrumental notes that are no different than notes that were played by Beethoven or
Mm-hmm.
Bach or anybody else, or some good old boy on his fiddle playing bluegrass.
Mm-hmm.
And even as a kid, I was like, you're going to have to be a pretty weak person and really weak in your faith if you think it's going to take some musical notes to cause your sin to go, you know, cause you to sin and go to hell.
Oh yeah.
You're not very faithful to begin with if that's all it took.
And it's sad. I mean, like when I was going to church when I was younger, this is when my parents were taking me and I didn't really have a choice or knew better. Although actually, correction, I knew better. I would actually ditch class and go like sit in the library instead. But the female pastor at the time, it was really progressive in the 90s, was a female pastor kind of thing. They're like, we're edgy and politically correct before it was even a thing. She pulled me aside. I was a big boy back then. I mean, I had a young age. They gave me meds and all that. One of them made me a little 7-year-old. 7-year-old gained essentially 60 pounds in like 2 months.
Woo!
No one told me. So they're all like, oh, you're fat. Jesus don't like fat people. She literally grabbed me and just went, Josh, God doesn't like fat people. Fat people go to hell. Do you like Jesus? You need to lose fat or you're going to hell. I was literally turned and said, if that's your God, I don't want him. Kind of thing. That was a whole blow up with there. But that's what made me realize, kind of like what we were doing to self-centered. Like she didn't like I was fat. So she was using hell as a reference for me to lose weight. But that's judging, which is back to the original
Yeah.
one.
And that's trying to put yourself on an even par with God that supposedly you worship and serve.
Oh, but we're buddy buddies. We talk all the time. It's okay.
Yeah, he doesn't need our help in deciding things like that. In fact, he doesn't need our help in deciding anything.
Yeah. And that was a big one. That's when I started like ditching and just going to like the library, or at a young age I started, the guys would like bring out the cookies and the really really bitter coffee. So at like 8 I would come out for my coffee and he's like, hey, I can't give you real coffee because it'll be obvious, but I'll give you decaf, which is like little to no caffeine. I'd be sitting there all happy, like sipping my coffee and talking to him with my little scone. And so that's where he talked about different stuff. And that's when I realized, I'm like, at a young age, I realized religion is like art. We can all see the same thing, but get different things out of it.
Yeah, that's a good
So
point. Well, we haven't talked at all yet
about
about
your
my
book,
book.
I
I
know this is,
know.
if they are still sitting here because of all the shit we've talked about, that's impressive. You all are amazing. Love you all.
That's right.
So you told me about the AI and the aliens. Tell me more about it. Like, give me the lead up, like the build up point. Like,
Oh, of that one short story?
oh no, the new one then.
Well, well, all of my books, all of my science fiction and paranormal books are short story collections.
Okay.
So there's like 30 short stories in each of them. So that just
Okay.
happens to be one of the stories that I wrote for book 4 that comes out in March. I finished book 4 already. I
Nice.
know. I set a goal for myself to finish it before school started again, and I did it with 2 days to spare.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I was
So,
happy. But the one that came out July 1st is called A Starry Night,
okay.
and it has some really fun stories in it too. And I have written so many stories. This sounds terrible. I should probably be on here being the warrior for A Starry Night right now, but I wrote so many stories over the summer
Hmm.
to make book 4 that now I'm having trouble off the top of my head remembering which ones are in A Starry Night and which ones are in the next book, which is going to be called Which Way to Go.
Tell us about whichever ones that come to your mind. Whether then people, if it's your fourth book, I'm like, oh, well, gotta go get that fourth one now.
Okay, all right. So I wrote a really long one to finish up Which Way to Go, and it's WITCH, Which Way to Go.
Okay.
And it's called An Arm and a Leg.
Okay.
And it is about a police officer who is called to the scene of a stranded motorist down this deserted dirt road. And he gets there and it was an ambush. And he's attacked. And he ends up losing one of his arms. Whoever this was, they used what was presumed to be an axe on him. And they cut off one of his arms and legs, and he almost bled to death. And he's in the hospital for a long, long time, for weeks, and finally gets to go home. And only one of his friends, he talks to a counselor, but only one of his friends from the force does he talk to about all the anger that he has. And he wants revenge. He wants to find who did this, right?
Hmm.
Because now he can't be a cop anymore. His whole life has been turned upside down. And so his buddy is like, don't worry about it. I'm with you. And I'll do whatever it takes, legal or not legal, to get this person.
Hmm.
Well, and this is a very condensed version of it. This is just the high
Yeah.
points of it. So, anyway, one night they decide to go out to where the attack had happened. And it the whole thing with it seeming like the air vibrated and they could hear a voice, here and there, and they're looking around with their flashlights and they get attacked again. And in the final scene, there's a young officer who's answering a call that dispatch has sent him out on to go find the officers because they were in peril. And he's just being sent out there to be another victim because it turns out that the dispatcher is actually the one who is sending them out there because her otherworldly family that lives out in this hollow actually eats people.
Dang.
And the cost of raising a family on a dispatcher's income costs an arm and a leg.
I like it. That's cool.
So I always have a twist of some kind in all my stories. And the good guys aren't always who you assume are the good guys. And sometimes the bad guys aren't even all that bad. There's this one story called The Trophy Hunter
Okay.
that's in A Starry Night. And it's this guy, and he's bragging about his hunting prowess and how he knows that people who aren't hunters think that it's just horrible that he goes out and he trophy hunts. But he likes to go out and hunt apex predators. That's his thing because,
There's a lot of myths with
any,
that, but okay.
yeah, well, the whole reason for it is that that's the challenge. Anybody can kill something that's not going to possibly get you, but looking something in the eye that could kill you too, and you still win.
Challenge it. Yeah.
Yeah, that, macho rush that he gets from it. Well, and it talks about he's on this hunt, this safari, and there were 3 apex predators that he wanted to get. And it's coming down to the last night that he's going to be on the hunt, and he's thinking he might come up with only 2 of the 3. So each time he describes briefly how he goes about killing them and getting his prey. And it's written so that people go, oh, that's just horrible. Oh, those horrible hunters. Oh, that's awful. Well, it turns out he's actually an alien, and he comes down to Earth, and like one of his apex predators was a murderer, one's a rapist, and one did something else that's horrible, like a pedophile or something like that.
Okay.
So people go, oh, wait a minute. We're always saying that those people should die anyway.
Yeah.
Suddenly the perspective flipped.
You're
Just
getting
when you
PETA
think,
really involved on that one.
yeah, well, just when you think that you're going to hate this guy who's the narrator, then it's like, oh, wait, he was kind of doing Earth a favor in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people's minds. So
Yeah, looks are
anyway,
not what they seem, kind of thing.
yeah, yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool. Do you have any like psychological, like Jekyll and Hyde breakdowns stories?
I have ones where characters aren't necessarily what they seem to be, as far as, like, in this one story that I wrote, it's in Which Way to Go. It is about a boy who his grandfather dies. It's called In Search of Alistair Lane. And his
Okay.
grandfather on his deathbed says, you've got to find Alistair Lane. He's like, but I don't know where that is. Well, then his grandfather dies and he's left all alone. And he ends up being put in foster care because his grandfather was the only family that he had. And his whole life, he's like, Mulberry Lane was 2 blocks over, and this and that was, this lane was over here. And he's looking, and he can't find any record of there being an Alistair Lane in their town. Well, then he finally ends up with a good foster family. But they understand when he turns 18, he wants to go find this out. He wants to find this place because his grandfather had said all of his trouble began there. And it turns out that Alistair Lane is a person, a who, not a where, and he's a demon that basically takes his victims as like their souls as payment, right?
Mm-hmm.
They belong to him then. Well, and the only way that you can not have that fate is you have to hand over somebody else to them. Well, then out of the shadows where this kid has gone to meet up with this Alistair Lane to hunt him down, the grandfather comes out of the shadows, and the grandfather's the one that sold him out.
God damn.
I know, Reginald was a bad dude.
God damn.
Yeah. With friends like that, who needs enemies, huh?
Right? Dang. And he trusted him too. And it was like he sold him out. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Dang, girl. You're all trying to piss off everyone now. Christians, this and that, PETA. You said if you go missing for a different reason. I'm like, I know where she's at. It's okay.
Just call me Salman Rushdie.
Right? I am just curious though, on a side note, are you worried about like cancel culture and all that like coming after you?
Not too much, no.
Why?
Just because the whole reason for the stories is to make people think and to um to challenge expectations. So
What if
it's
okay.
not as though I have some agenda that I'm trying to impose on other people or anything like that. I
Mhm.
just like to upend people's expectations of what they think something's going to be. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, and if they get all hot and bothered, all it is free advertising for you because you're gonna be like, look, these little
Yeah,
bitches they cry about me, gotta get more book sales.
yeah, go see what they're complaining about. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a big one because I've been reading different like books on like um Save the Cat writes a novel by Jessica something. And then this other one I bought on Audible called Great Courses, like How to Write Great Fiction. Then I also listen to Stephen King's memoir on writing, and all of them unanimously say if you want to be a successful author, do not expect to make friends.
yeah,
If you're like if you want to make friends as an author, you're in the wrong business, kind of thing.
yeah. I mean, we're we're here to tell stories and to tell stories well,
Hmm.
not not worry about. See, I have a problem with people with who think that all stories should have trigger warnings. Are you serious? The
I'm not
trigger,
putting.
that's that's why people watch scary movies.
Yeah, because
You
they
know, they
don't want to
want
be
that
warned.
shock. Yeah, they want the surprise. If you go,
Well,
oh, by the way, this is about animals being killed, but don't worry, it's not animals, it's just pedophiles. And if you're a pedophile and you're going to feel triggered by this, just a little warning, maybe you shouldn't read this story. It's going to hurt your little boo boos, you know? And
yeah, I
no,
know. No, I like for me, I don't put trigger warnings on stuff like this because it's like we had a great conversation. The thing with podcasts is we're having a great conversation and you get to listen in.
yeah,
So if you don't like it, you can always click off and go somewhere else, kind of thing.
exactly.
Like I'm not
And
holding
it's
you
not that we're,
hostage.
yeah, and we're not being insulting to each other either.
No, we were just challenging each other.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
that's where
it's,
like one of the guests actually listened to me and she's like, "Man, you should put trigger warnings on stuff." I'm like, "Man, if I did that, oh, the reason my this whole notebook would be full by the end of a week of everything I have to remember."
yeah,
Because I'm like, because I told her like, there's always new triggers. There's, I said, there's a new one I hear and it's so disgustingly weird. You have to warn people about cutting plants.
what?
Yeah, if someone's cutting grass, apparently that's triggering. I didn't know that till like for a couple weeks ago. I've like my girlfriend listens to like this podcast with two ladies and they get drunk and they have ADHD conversations. There was 10 minutes of trigger warning. 10 minutes. I'm like, oh my God. And then they do like another 10 minutes of ads. And I was like, okay, by the
Well,
time I'm like, at that
what's
point,
the
why are
point of
you?
listening? What's the
Yeah,
point of listening if you already know what topics are going to be discussed?
exactly. I was like, wait, that's so stupid, kind of thing. And it was the whole thing where they really enable ladies to do whatever they want, but not for the betterment of a relationship, just for themselves. That part is mostly why I stopped listening because they're like, girl, you want to go get some dick? Go get some. You got a boyfriend? Don't worry about it. He's just a little bitch, anyways. And after I sat
Oh,
there and I'm like, that's more, I was like, I'm done. I'm not going to listen to this.
yeah. Now that deserves a trigger warning right there that they're going to tell people trash your life. Go out there, ruin your life and your relationship. Do it.
It's okay, girl. Yeah. And it's just one of those, I was like, I know that's what those extremist feminists want to hear, kind of thing, where it's like, you just embody the masculine and feminine. It's okay, girl. Boss bitch, kind of thing. And it's like, There's a reason why it's called female or feminine energy versus male or masculine energy. There's intentionally a divide, but when they unite, it's like yin and yang kind of thing. Not because it's supposed to be all black, little white kind of thing.
Well, and I hate to be the one, I mean, trigger warning to those podcasters. I hate to be the one to tell you this, but women have been out doing that since the
Years.
dawn of time.
Yeah.
So you're not telling them anything remarkable. Anybody who's going to want to do that already
Well,
has been doing it.
mm-hmm. And they're probably not listening to your podcast because they're in bed with
Exactly,
someone
because
else.
they're too busy. I was gonna say they're too busy doing their thing.
But it was just that's where, like, for me, that's why I stopped listening to that, because I'm like, that's all that's doing is adding to the divisiveness we were talking about earlier. Because it's like,
Yeah.
really, like, kind of thing. But so sorry for that side tangent. For
No, that's
what's the
okay.
tell me a couple more of your other stories.
Oh my goodness. Let me think of the recent ones.
What's the one that sticks out to you the most, whether it's the old one or a new one?
Well, there's this one that is the first story in book two. Book
Right.
two is called When the Cowbird Sings.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first story is called Ice House Canyon. And when I lived in Globe, Arizona, I taught at an alternative school that was down in Ice House Canyon. And there is a legend down there about this goat man that lives down there. And yeah, he apparently is super
Like a
scary
Capricorn.
and looks at people's window and stuff like that. No, not just like a Capricorn.
Oh, is it like a Capricorn?
But no, supposedly there's this guy. I mean, not a guy, it's a goat man that lives down there, walks on hooves and everything.
Okay.
And it's been a legend in that area for a long, long time. And actually, one of my oldest son's friends from elementary school swore that he had seen it one night. And the kid was like being absolutely serious, not trying to pull our leg or anything. He was terrified. So I started off with the concept of the goat man of Ice House Canyon. And then I blended in because I needed somebody to be the bad guy, the little
Mm-hmm.
punk who picks on the good kid, Johnny Pensinger, who has just moved to the area, right?
Right.
And so when my youngest son was in 8th grade, he had never had trouble with this kid before. The kid's going around all day long going, I'm going to kick Kevin Peters' ass. I'm going to kick his ass. Where's Kevin? I'm going to kick his ass. And everybody's going, why are you saying that? You and Kevin have never had any kind of beef before. And even a couple of teachers were like, why are you saying that? You need to stop saying that. So Kevin finally told the kid, well, okay, if that's what you want, then meet me after school. But I'm not looking for a fight. So Kevin had to walk one direction to get to our house, and the
Mm-hmm.
other kid had to go the other direction to get to his house. Well, Kevin had kind of looked around after school, didn't see the kid, so he and his best friend came walking down to go to our house. The other kid saw Kevin, turned around, came and picked a fight with Kevin. And Kevin's like, you know what, guy? All right, fine. I'll even let you have the first hit. But you better make it count because after that, the
I'm gonna
fight's
whoop
on.
you.
Yeah. And he had his best friend Jeremy hold his arms behind his back, had this kid hit him, and then Kevin beat the crap out of the kid and turned and walked home, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Next thing you know, this this blows up into this huge thing. Kevin is out of school suspended for 10 days for gang fighting.
It was
And we're like,
it was just him.
right. But after he had beaten this kid up, these other two boys who had heard this kid mouthing the entire day about how he's going to beat up Kevin, one of them passed the kid who was on the ground crying, and he gave him a little kick with his foot, like nothing serious, just bumped him with his foot, like, you little crybaby, baby, you little jerk, right? Well, they used that to say that Kevin um, was in a gang fight. Well, I complained to the principal, got nowhere, went to the superintendent's office. And the superintendent, she says, "Oh, yeah, I know all about this." And I'm like, "How could you know all about this? It just happened yesterday." She goes, "Wow, his grandmother is my secretary. So I already know all about this." Because the other kid didn't get in trouble at all.
Mm-hmm.
That kid's name was Tyler Allard.
Mm-hmm.
So in my Ice House Canyon story, the little bully who gets punked and becomes a little bitch, I named him Tyler Allard.
Sweet revenge.
Exactly.
That's cool. So then how does the goat man thing? Do they find him and realize it's just like a weird mutated man? Is it a monster?
It turns out that Johnny Pensinger, the reason why his family moved there was because that was actually where they were from. And his whole family, like his mom and his uncle, the goat man,
Mm-hmm.
they all transform into goats. And he looked down at his own feet that had also changed into hooves.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So the goat man wasn't bad. He had just seen what was happening with that Tyler kid, and he paid a little visit over to Tyler's house. And they decided after that, Tyler and his father decided they didn't want any trouble with the Pensingers.
Yeah, I would think so. This
Yeah.
giant goat man thing came in and you're like, oh. And then if they were simple Christians, you'd be like, Satan, please spare us, Satan. That's cool though. I like
Thinking
your
of goats, though,
stories.
oh, well, thinking just real quick, a farm story.
Okay.
I saw something incredible. It was about 2 weeks ago on my farm. I should have taken a video, but I was so stunned at what I was witnessing that I didn't. But I did take a couple of still photos once she accomplished her task.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I'm Jane Goodall with goats
Okay.
because one of my baby goats, Matilda, and she is pretty smart. Like she learned her name within like a day, the whole thing. She's a pretty sharp goat. I had no idea she was this smart though. She was standing there and she was looking up at the fence at some vines that were growing on the top of the fence, but since she's a baby, she can't reach it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she looked over and there was a Rubbermaid tub that I had out in the yard to out in their yard to catch rainwater for them.
Mm-hmm.
She went over, she pushed it towards the fence, upended it so that it went upside down, and then hopped on top of the turned over Rubbermaid tub so she could get up and eat the leaves. Yes,
That's amazing.
I could not believe it. She's a genius. I think she's probably already studying calculus at this point.
Honestly, this is the one thing I tell people. I said, who's to say animals are as not as smart as us? The only difference between us and animals is how we communicate. What
And
if
we
we
don't
sound
even know that. We don't even
wow?
know that. Like I tell Keith, people talk about how stupid animals are, but they can understand what we're saying, and we don't understand a thing that they're saying.
Mm-hmm. Well, like these fish, they're super smart. I also figured out some of them are carnivorous. So when a fish dies, there's suddenly a missing body, but that's a different story. I didn't do my homework on that. Um, but literally, they know. They learn. I got them when I was still working night shift, so they learn when the light turns on, food time. But also when I sit here, I talk to them. There's a lot more of them. They would start schooling where that blue thing is
Really?
when I talk to them. But then they would go back to normal and just be over here. It was the weirdest thing, and that's where I was like, "Oh my gosh!" That's like I'm talking
They
to them,
know.
so they know.
Yeah, well, Matilda's dad, his name's Hercules.
Hmm.
Um, I'll let him free range in the actual my yard
Hmm.
to eat down weeds and stuff like that. And it's a good thing that he does not have opposable thumbs
Or he
because
would have caused so much chaos.
he tries to get in the house. He understands. I have watched him. He understands that the screen door is manipulated by the handle, and he'll come up and he'll put his front hooves on the door and be biting the handle, trying to pull on it to open it. If he ever figures out that he just needs to put his hooves on the wall of the house and then pull with his mouth on the handle, he could very well start letting himself in.
You're just gonna come home one day and Hercules is gonna be on the couch going like, "Hey, lady,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
don't
I
mind me.
mean,
I got myself a brewski. It's okay."
yeah. Um, the dogs, they're being pretty well behaved, and dinner's on the stove.
Hmm.
Yeah.
The real life goat man, he's just sitting there like, "Hey,
Yeah.
that's cool." I mean, honestly,
He's a
though,
menace.
he's just a curious little goat. Well, big goat.
He's little. They're Nigerian dwarfs, so they aren't very
Okay,
big.
but I mean, like years ago before COVID, my sister bought like chickens because she got on that whole
Uh-huh.
like chicken coop thing. Yeah, she bought them. She tended them for about 3 weeks and then totally abandoned her chickens, and I kind of inherited them.
Uh-huh.
But the one thing is, two of them died from egg impaction. I didn't know that was a thing.
Ooh. No, it's
Um,
real.
yeah, guess it's a really excruciating death for them too. Um, so there was so those two died, and they never really liked me. There was this little brown oddball, and so like the little brown oddball was the one that was left, and it's still when I was working night shift. So I would go out and I'd literally just open the gate and let her roam the yard because we have a lot of bugs and a lot of grass. So she'd go out and clean up our bugs. And there was one day I was really depressed for some reason. I was probably just didn't get enough sunlight or whatever. She hopped on my lap, looked at me, pecked my cheek, but didn't hurt me a few times, and then just snuggled with me. How did she know that I needed that? Unless she was smarter
Yeah.
than we thought.
Yeah. They are smart. I think it
But
just makes people feel bad to think that we eat things that are really smart. And as much as I love my chickens, I also love to eat chicken. So it
right.
it's just kind of like it's nobody we know, so it's okay.
Well, also it's like our body does need animal protein. As much as people are
Yeah.
like, oh, you can make it with like soy. I've seen more damage with soy. Well, okay. There's
Yeah.
the whole argument of veganism is actually killing the world more than cows, but essentially I told them, I'm like, the one person at work was like, oh, soy is great for you. I'm like, have you heard of men actually getting breast cancer because of eating so much soy? And
Uh-huh.
he's like,
It
no, that's not real. I'm like, oh, it's totally a thing. It's
it
not just like
produces
the,
estrogen, doesn't it? Doesn't it
yeah,
cause their bodies? Yeah.
yeah. It produces more estrogen than even a woman can produce. So, and that's where I'm sitting here telling him, like, dude, you want to get bitch tits and breast cancer at like 35? Go for it, kind of thing. Because
Oh
I'm like,
my
that's all you're
gosh.
gonna get. Because he's like, oh, I'm doing it to save animal lives. And I was like, okay, this is actually an argument I have. I don't usually use it often because you're trying to save one life, right? And he's like, yes. I said, okay. What about those farmers in South America who torch the rainforest? Let's just talk about not talk about the thousands of rare indigenous species that might be exclusive to that one tree that he just cut down for your soy. Let's skip those thousands. What about the tens of even hundreds of thousands of insects that they use pesticides to commit genocide in the area, on top of any foxes, turtles, um,
Birds.
muskrats, birds that they have to shoot? I said, we're talking in the hundreds of thousands of dollars per crop. No, hundreds of thousands of lives per crop. But that's not one cow. And I said that one cow maybe in his lifetime will kill, I'm being really conservative, like 500 flies in his lifetime. Compared to hundreds of thousands of indigenous species, turtles, this and that. Oh, but it's one life kind of thing. It's like, that's just crops. It's not actually real. And I said, here's my other argument. What if plants like our talk? What if plants are talking to us, but we're too stupid to hear them? What if the cracking of the branch is actually the tree screaming in agony, and that's the one time we can actually hear it?
I like that.
So then you are taking life.
I
You
may
are,
have to use that in a story, just so you know, Josh.
go for it. Because I told him, I said, there's where I'm at, there's a 150-year-old fig tree. And when I was working night shift, I had to go sit in that tree during the night. I felt like a old whispering willow, like in Lord of the Rings, was talking to me. Could be hallucinating, could be whatever, but it felt like it was coming from the ground, though.
What did he say?
Well, I would just, it pretty much said to me, it's like, why are you so sad? You are a heavy burden on me. And I said, oh, I'm just sad because life, like, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. And the tree was just like, but that's life. I do the same thing over and over again, kind of thing. That is the cycle. It is normal for this planet, kind of thing.
That's really
I would,
cool.
right? I was just one of those.
It
I was
is.
just. That's why I always do the argument of like frequencies. I must have got down to a certain frequency I could hear it.
Well, and I think we all were, maybe not all, but quite a few of us, for whatever reason, we don't know why, but we'll have a favorite tree, you know,
Mhm.
or, maybe, well, I grew up in the country and we had lots of trees, and it's not that I had anything against any of the others, but my two favorite trees were the hickory tree in the front yard and
Mhm.
the mulberry tree down on the side yard. Not for, like, rationally, there's probably not any reason why I liked that one better, but what if there is something about the frequency? And to a certain degree, certain plants, excuse me, do speak to you a
Mhm.
certain way. Why is it that some people like particular flowers more than others?
Mhm.
There could be all kinds of reasons.
Again, back to the we don't even fully understand our brain, so how are we expecting them to know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the big. Once I told him that, I said, if we ever put a body count on how much life is taken, I promise you, possible burgers and the faux meat stuff, that would suddenly stop.
Yeah.
Because the whole argument of veganism just blows up right there.
Well, and also you look at things like even the microorganisms in the soil,
Hmm.
where a cow is actually giving back nutrients that they live on.
Hmm.
And so if you stop raising cows, how many of those microorganisms are going to lose their food source?
Which then affects the quality of the food, which then affects us, kind of thing.
Yep, definitely.
So if you ever do one with a plant story like that, I'd love to get hear about it.
Okay. I mean, I did write one that had to do with plants. And I'll send it to you. It's called How Does Your Garden Grow?
Okay. Yeah, that sounds interesting. But I would love to hear your take on like kind of like what we just chatted about, like making your short stories, making people think. That'd be cool.
Okay, that'd be fun. It would.
I can
Well,
see already your brain's just going for it. It
yeah, I'm thinking, this will be fun.
will be. Is your phone about to die?
No, I just saw that it's almost 7 o'clock here.
Oh,
I
it's
wasn't
five
sure
here.
how I wasn't sure how long you needed to be talking.
I'm here as long as you want to be here. Either way. But yeah, I think that's a good one. I think we caused a lot of chaos in the middle, people listening to the stories, and then we had a little philosophy at the end. I think it was a good
I
one.
like that. I think so too.
I appreciate it.
We
Thank
need
you.
to do this again.
Absolutely. You have my link. You can always book.
You can just tell me about your fishing trip if nothing else.
Fishing trip. Okay.
Sounds good. No,
Yeah,
it's always fun to talk with you.
it is. It is. Well, I'm gonna just if people made it to the end and are still listening, where can they get to you?
Um, they can find my books on Amazon, and my name's Caroline Giamanco. I'm sure you'll have that information attached to the podcast on how
Hmm.
to spell it. And on Facebook, I'm Caroline Giamanco author, and my fan page is Caroline Giamanco author fans. And on Twitter, I'm at Giamanco book.
Jamunko book. Okay. Cool, cool. Well, an absolute honor and a pleasure, like always. We could sink 3 hours in this conversation and only just we don't have enough liquid death for that kind of thing.
This is true. I think I'm losing my voice a little bit, so I apologize for coughing earlier.
It's okay. Well, congratulations. You made it to the end. You are a awesome person. Not many make it here. So, being the awesome person that you are, can you do me one more awesome favor? Can you rate and review this on whatever podcast services you're using? If you do it on Apple and you leave an actual written review, I have a thing on my website. I will take your written review and post it for all to see. Congratulations, you're permanently sealed on my site. Otherwise, I am trying to do YouTube more and live streaming. I will try to put as many of the YouTube links in the description of the show as I can. So give your boy some extra help over on YouTube. Watch my videos. I just mute it and change the channel, change the window or something. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for being awesome and see you next time.